Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to the inaugural edition of Southern Football Podcast. This is something that I have been looking forward to doing for a really long time. I'm going to be doing this one alone, but I'm going to be joined by my host Drew. We're shooting for Sunday, and we will upload this to the YouTube channel, upload that episode to the YouTube channel at that time. But basically, just a really short rundown of what we're going to be doing here. This is going to be a very raw, very real look at, from a fan's perspective, at college athletics, particularly football, even more particularly SEC football. Now, we're going to be doing, of course, we're going to be doing some coverage on NFL football, but mainly with NFL football, we're going to be doing fantasy. And, if one of our teams has a big game coming up or has just played in a big game or somehow if the 49ers end up in playoff contention, I will cut my dick off. And then, no, I'm just kidding. I won't do that. But we will be talking about all things NFL related. But let's get right down to business. I'm going to start by covering a topic that's become honestly sort of a troubling trend, and that is it has to do with Leonard Fournette. Of course, everybody knows LSU superstar running back Leonard Fournette. And just to be clear, just very very upfront, this is not anything that he has said. He has done nothing to indicate that he's looking at doing this. But anyway, I'm looking for the author that put this out there. But basically, it was insinuated that he should sit out his senior year. Um, I don't know why anyone would suggest that he do such a thing. I'm actually looking at it right now. It's looks like it's Barrett Sallee of Bleacher Report. So that's I've always enjoyed Barrett's work. That's it's kind of surprising that he would I'm not going to say he tried to steer Fournette towards that direction, but he asked, basically the gist of the article is he's asking if he should sit it out. And again, this is Barrett Sallee of the Bleacher Report. And, he starts the article by saying basically you knew this was coming. It's been sort of the topic around, around sports talk radio the last couple of days, I guess. There's somebody on Fox Sports Radio that made mention of it. And the article goes on to say that Fournette himself dispelled this notion when it popped up last October. He says, "My main focus this year is to win a national championship and bring it back to Louisiana, or bring it to Louisiana." And Barrett Sallee goes on to say the last two words of that quote are the most important to Louisiana. And I actually agree with Barrett on this point. If this podcast somehow makes it to Fournette, one piece of advice I would offer up is look at who has done similar things in the past. The most high profile, or the one that comes to mind for me the most, is Jadeveon Clowney, with that being just a couple of years ago. And I mean, honestly, since he started thinking about NFL money, he has not really done a whole lot of anything. He was the number one overall draft pick on potential, which lets what NFL GMs thought of him. But the difference between a guy like Jadeveon Clowney and say J.J. Watt is just that potential. A really good coach, Dennis Green, I believe he's the one that said this, no, I'm sorry, it was Brian Billick. Brian Billick once said, "Son, your potential is going to get me fired." Yeah, and he made reference to a quarterback that he wouldn't name, but he said that on the NFL Network some years ago. But I wholeheartedly agree with him on that too. But basically, Jadeveon Clowney is he's going into his third year in the NFL. I believe he has like 3 career sacks or something like that. I'll pull up his stats just to clarify that. But he has not made one single impactful play. 4.5 sacks for his career. By comparison, D Ford of Auburn that was taken. He was also a first-round pick, but he was taken, I believe, 30th overall. He has 5.5 sacks. So, take that with a grain of salt. But it's a tough thing for me to put myself in that situation because I've never been in position to make millions and millions of dollars like that. But really, if you look at the bust rate, A lot of it is from guys, and you're saying these early retirements. A lot of it's from guys that sort of get that first initial paycheck. And shoot, I mean, back when we'll say Reggie White was playing, I mean, you had to work your ass off to get a huge paycheck like that. Now these guys are getting it. Now it's not as bad as what it used to be, but these guys are getting it straight out of college. I mean, that's one of the more ridiculous contracts I can remember is the day Matthew Stafford stepped foot on an NFL football field. He was making more than Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, or Drew Brees. Excuse me. And that's three surefire Hall of Fame football players. So, I mean, it's just sort of gotten out of hand in terms of that. Also, and we could get into, not really a political debate, but sort of a, generational attitude of, maybe being babied. I don't know if that's a good way to put it either, but all the concussion talk and stuff like that. And I mean, I know nobody wants to hear it, but I mean that is what's happening. I mean, it's Chris Borland, a fantastic linebacker for the 49ers. They took in I believe the third round out of Wisconsin 2 or 3 years ago. He retired after 1 year at 20 whatever it was 23, 24 years old because he said he was afraid that basically, he said he was afraid he wasn't going to, he was going to have early onset dementia and all sorts of stuff. And I mean, I know that guys are bigger, faster, and stronger now than they ever have been. So you're not going to have the, with I guess with Ray Lewis and a couple of other guys being an exception, you're not going to have the 14, 15-year linebackers anymore. It's going to be more of a quick. Quick flash in the pan guys like, I think of guys like Clay Matthews, Brian Cushing, guys like that were maybe productive for like 2 or 3 years, but then you find out they were juicing or whatever. So, I mean, I get that, those 15, 16-year NFL careers for defensive players, particularly linebackers, are a thing of the past. And same thing for running backs. You're not going to have an Emmitt Smith. I mean, we've got, but back then I was talking to a coworker earlier, at work earlier today. And, I told him, but back, when I was in, grade school, middle school, you could stick a Barry Sanders on a team, give him the ball, 25, 30 times a game, and then basically put any quarterback with him, and you were going to be successful. Probably make the playoffs, So it's just, it's sort of a sign of the times, really. It's, just like I said, just a generational, maybe, fear mongering. I think has a lot to do with it, things like that. But I don't know. It's really disheartening to see, to be honest with you. As football's a game that's been near and dear to my heart for a long time. That's one of my favorite things to do is just sit on the couch on a Saturday afternoon or a Sunday afternoon and watch some football. But anyway. That's I guess that's going to do it for this inaugural edition of Southern Football Podcast. But like I said, Drew and I will be back with an episode Sunday night. This is something that's frankly a little tough to do on your own. I mean, I didn't even get an outline together or anything, but we will have one show fully prepared on Sunday night. And in the meantime, I hope that you guys will listen to this podcast and just sort of give us a shot. Like I said, I mean, this is something that's pretty tough to do on your own, especially when I haven't done it as long as I have. So anyway, I appreciate everybody that does listen, and thanks. Y'all have a good night.